32. So what is that, 32 years?
How? Like, for the
We
masses.
want to be. You got to want it. I don't want nobody to have my woman. She mine. I'm hers.
What's the word that we just had somebody on? The relationship has to have staying power. Certain things in the culture has never changed. It's just all about how you are locked in with your partner. You don't stay with a person for as long as you've been with your person and can honestly say, man, every single day I wake up and it's just doves flying.
But who in your life is it like that with? You don't like your mama every day. Some days she get on your nerves. Some day, you know, your brother. Every day ain't gonna be roses.
Yeah.
You can't expect that from your spouse. It's all about, are y'all a family or not? You know, you gotta be willing to give. And as a person that you want to give to, your time, effort, and love.
Right.
I need you to hear me and hear me well. Welcome to Little Black Bird, another one. I want to say this very, very quickly. I think Cam Newton doesn't realize. No, he does realize. He realizes that when Ice Cube is talking about his fidelity, and I've experienced this around some of my goons and some of the guys who obviously in the past would play the game, right? People who are emotionally wounded, including myself, which obviously I realize. When they see other people being faithful, it actually astounds them because their mindset is not the same, right? Because they are wounded and they view the world through the lens of the wound. And so things like fidelity can become a very difficult thing. And the reason why fidelity is a very difficult thing and staying with somebody for 30 years can be very difficult are a number of reasons. Number one, a lot of men don't like the woman they're actually with. Not they don't like women. They don't like that woman that they're actually with. That woman doesn't make them want to be better. That woman doesn't make them want to move the earth and shake the skies, right? Doesn't want to make them pull the moon to the earth, right? They don't like that woman. They might love them because of what that woman can do, right? They're great mother, they're nurturing, they're caring, they're loving, jazzy, for instance, right? Submissive, all these things, right? But you don't like them. And I said this before, that when men like that woman, when a man likes that woman, you see how he moves the earth, the stars, the moon, the universe for that particular woman. Because at that space, he's not invested just because she's a beautiful woman. He's invested because something about her speaks to his soul. It's very similar to what Adam and Eve situation in the garden, right? Where Adam said he saw Eve and he said, the bone of my bone, the flesh of my flesh. And from there, did he move the earth and the heavens? Yeah, because when she decided to eat the fruit from the tree, he ate it too. Okay, when she had to leave, he had to leave too. I mean, he ain't no choice about that. But still, my point I'm making is that when a man likes the woman, not just love, because I think men can fall in love with a lot of different women, but when they like that woman, when they're looking not at the animals that they have to name, but the woman that makes them say, wow, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, right? They will look to try actively to pursue fidelity and faithfulness because they realize that no one else should have her except him. But you also must believe that you're worthy of that person, and you believe that you are worthy of being loved by that person who you believe is so great. And a lot of people are included. I was at a point in time very much wounded and did not really realize how much I deserved love. And so my behaviors showed I did not necessarily deserve love. So when we hear Ice Cube talking about how he stayed in his marriage for the last 30 years and Cam Newton asking, how do you do it? You need to stay in power. And Ice Cube tells him very quickly, he exposes Cam Newton for the low functioning behaviors, which I also have some of those behaviors, which I'm learning to grow out of as well. Right, is that what he exposed? He said it is because you want to do it. He said you got to want it. And the reality of the situation is Cam doesn't want it bad enough that he wants to, he wants to live it and breathe it, right? He doesn't, because really and truly, to want it counterintuitive to the pain that he feels from wanting it. And so actually, when he does go to want it, he feels pain when he goes to grab onto it. When he goes to be monogamous in that relationship, the wounds that he feels stop him from grabbing on and holding on to a monogamous relationship. Right? So that feeling of, I don't want no one else to have her. No one else can have her. I'll make sure I have control over the scenario. right? And you hear Ice Cube talking about the value he rises up from his woman. I don't want no one else to have her. Shows that he has value. I don't want to give her up. This is somebody who I really care about, I love, and I appreciate. It's somebody who is amazing. Why would I want to give up? And I'm telling this as a man myself, as somebody who was emotionally unavailable. And what we say unavailable, what we mean is your inability to receive and give on a consistent basis, the ability to receive and give love and emotions, right? And emotional intimacy, the ability to give and to take it. Okay. I struggled in that area. And so I know what it looks like when you are emotionally unavailable, you're offline, and you go offline because you're overstimulated by what you're seeing and what you're experiencing in relationships with the other party. So you want them, but you realize that you realize the defectiveness of yourself. You sabotage relationships. So it can be very difficult to understand where Ice Cube is coming from. Now, of course, I've been in relationships where I've been faithful and been in long-term relationships, 2-3 years. So I've seen myself do that, right? But I've also seen myself be Cam Newton in the sense of the sabotage. And I can understand how it happens, right? As I call it, the kill switch. That I can only do I realized I can only do 2 or 3 years if I want to do a kill switch. And I realized why that was. It's because it was pain that I had not dealt with from my parents, that I had not fully fixed within myself. I had not dealt with those emotional wounds. And so when Ice Cube starts speaking about staying with a woman for 30 years, what he's talking about is the ability to ride some of those rough seas, be able to maneuver some of those spaces where it doesn't go always your way, right? Now, I took something. I want to say this, and I quote me on this. I'm going to break this down. I wrote it down because I wanted it to make it very clear. Staying faithful is never easy for men with means because of the temptation to cheat. But pause. I know women can cheat too, but we need to listen to me very carefully. But notice that cheating usually stems from sex. Men don't often cheat in the emotional aspect. They cheat through a physical means, sex. Now, the reason why sex is important here is because it's actually attached to emotional connection. Now, what problem that we have here is that a lot of men who are emotionally unavailable, or I should say emotionally broken and wounded, don't realize the connection between sex and emotions. The reason why they are even enjoying sex is because, of course, there is a high, there is a release of chemicals of dopamine and oxytocin. And I always get the third one as well, serotonin as well, which makes the sex feel intoxicating when you release those things. But those highs are actually also meant to be gratified through the emotional connection that you have with somebody. You're supposed to get a dopamine rush when you like the person that you're actually with. You're supposed to feel serotonin and oxytocin, wanting to be close and wanting to be attached to that person when you emotionally connect. But a lot of men who are broken from their childhood struggle in that area. And so they get their connection and their closeness from a space of from a space of being temporary, right? Because they are emotionally unconnected most of the time. And so their joy is attached to the pleasure they receive from sex. Because you see, sex in aspects gives us a physical high and a pleasure, and that could equal joy. Okay. And so for someone like Cam Newton, right? You know, when it comes to sex, it's the gateway to many things, right? For instance, if a man doesn't get enough sex, he actually may feel rejection. But because he doesn't want to call it rejection, he in the way of emotion, he will say, nah, yeah, she rejected me from sex, and that's it. But will not go deeper beneath that. And the reason why is because he's not emotionally connected to be able to tap into, okay, well, how do I feel? Well, actually, when you rejected me, I felt disgusted that you rejected me, because actually I felt disgusted about myself. Because often what's happening is the person who's rejecting you in the sexual area is actually connecting with a wound that you already existed in your childhood. You've already heard or seen or felt rejection before, and their behavior is connecting with an emotional wound from the past that is beginning to ratify and beginning to how do I say this? It's beginning to ratify and also speak that actually what you experienced as a child is true. You're not worthy. You deserve to be rejected. You don't deserve love. You don't deserve connection. You don't deserve to be liked, wanted for who you actually are. And so things like, let's say, getting rejected from sex in your partner, right? Or having to even have to wait if your partner says, I don't want to have sex today, and how that the person may take it and personalize it. And by the way, I'm explaining the reasons behind. Okay. So, and personalizing the fact that the person said, I don't want to have sex today, they personalize it as an attack on them, that they're being rejected, they're being abandoned. And so those behaviors actually elicit an emotion of powerlessness. And so I don't want to feel powerlessness again. I felt that as a child. I will do whatever I must do in order not to feel powerless. And that's where sometimes, that's where men end up then in relationships cheating, because I don't want to feel that powerlessness again. Or I don't have the resources nor the tools or the skills to be able to navigate these stormy seas, even though Jesus said to the storm, be still. I don't have it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do all I know how to do in that moment. And that is to what? Step out. I'm going to take control, because when you cheat, you are taking control, right? You want to get what you want. It's going to be on your time. Your operators, how do you say? Operators, mandem, you know what? Leave it alone. You know? Okay. And so because of those traumas that you've experienced from childhood, adult wounds or adult actions and behaviors connect with those wounds, and they put you back into your childhood again. And so saying, being able to not fulfill your desires in that immediate moment can feel like you're being controlled or you're lacking power. And nobody wants to feel that again, right? And so it's easier to creep and do the nonsense by cheating with somebody physically again once more, because again, once more, the action is actually an emotional one. It's actually an emotional one, but the person doesn't connect those dots. And so with Cam Newton looking at Ice Cube, he won't connect those dots. He's like, how do you stay faithful? You don't realize that you connect with a person emotionally, right? If you keep having multiple partners, you're having multiple sexual partners, not realizing that you need emotional connection with every single one of them. That's why it's so, how do you have emotional connection with all of them? Even biblically, it doesn't work. We see it all the time. Abraham didn't connect emotionally with Hagar and Sarah at the same time, right? That's why he sent Hagar away. What, King David, did he connect with Bathsheba and what's her name, Abigail, and two other concubines he had emotionally the same way? Did Solomon connect with all the women, the 700 concubines or whatever 300 wives he had? Can he connect emotionally all the same way with them? No. The reality of the situation is you are devoid of the emotional connection. And we look at David in the Bible as a king, his father actually rejected him. And so he passed on that rejection to his son Solomon, because again, David went after Bathsheba, wanted her, right? Slept with her and had Solomon. Okay. But we know that David had other wives. Now, of course, we know that in those times they were trying to have many children so they can obviously keep the throne alive. That's a different scenario and different dispensation, which is why I can't compare ourselves to kings of those times. Okay. Right. So if you don't like that woman, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to want to stay with her long term. Because once the use of that person finishes, which is, I get what I want to get out of you, which is the honeymoon phase, usually of the 2 years or so. Once that finishes, I don't want anything from you again. So as Ice Cube said, you got to want it. You know, you got to want it. But really and truly, as a man, you got to realize your value first in you. The Bible says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. With that lack of love for yourself, how would you be able to love your neighbor? The Bible says, love your wife as Christ loved the church. But how would you be able to do that if you can't even love God? You know, if you can't even love your neighbor as you love yourself, how would you be able to love your wife in that aspect? Because you need to. The Bible talks about how you should treat your wife as you treat yourself. Well, if you don't love you, then how would you treat her? So Cam Newton has got some work to do, a lot of work to do. And I think Ice Cube just exposed that even some more. Appreciate it, guys. Till Oxyloaded. We'll see you again soon for another enthralling video.